Hi everyone, this is Kelly Ann with Church Windows. I am the organizer and presenter for today's user group webinar. Today's topic is accounting, basic setup, and basic transactions. I want to point out, I always like to point this out in any class or webinar or anything I'm doing having to do with Church Windows. On screen right now we see version 16.13.2. The A that we see here, you will not see that. A special script was run on this version on our front office computer. To see if you're on the most current version, if you're ever in doubt, or if you need to go install the most current version, if you go to our website, along the left in the support section, we can click on Download Current Updates. And this page will always show you the most current versions of the Church Windows program and the separate install of another product, our payroll program. Here you can see install instructions, what's new. We've had several service releases for 16.13. Excuse me. And we also have a hot fix that came out for version 16.13 as well. So if you're in doubt or you need to update, then take a look at our Download Current Updates page. If you ever need help with that, you can call in and one of our install techs can help you out. All right. We're going to go ahead and start looking at counting the basics, basic setup, and some basic transactions. Now, if you're on the most current version of the program and you've converted from financial to the newer program, accounting, I believe that came out in 2007 or 8, so it's been out for a while, but it's newer than financial. If you're on financial, then what you see today will not look like what you currently own. If you convert your data from financial into the newer accounting, then you will not see the setup wizard unless you choose to open a new year with a blank chart of accounts. But we are going to start in the setup wizard for new users and take a look at just some basic setup, how we work through the wizard. Then I will show you after the wizard how you can add more accounts if you need to. And again, some of the basic transactions. We may not get into some of the more advanced things. All right, so if you're brand new to Church Windows and you open the accounting program, the first thing you're going to see is this screen, and this is what we call the setup wizard. It guides you through the different types of accounts you need. If you're ever in doubt about what accounts you might need or you're not sure how to set up your chart of accounts, take a look under support. We have some support docs and links or documents. And I know we've done some moving around here, but I think, yes, here we have, let me put the spotlight on it, the accounting sample chart of accounts. This, click on it here. We take a look at this. It's just a basic chart of accounts. It is not exactly what you might need, but it's just a suggestion, an example of what a basic chart of accounts looks like and shows the accounts you may or may not need. Also, if you need help with accounting, if you look on our conversion transition page, if you haven't converted to accounting yet, I highly suggest you look at this page first. Here we have a document, the accounting transition, that talks about, well, the first is a quick reference guide chart showing you if you did things this way in financial, here's where you go in accounting to do that. Part 2 covers converting, things you want to do before you convert to clean up, things you have to do before the program will allow you to convert. And then 3 and 4 go over some of the basic functions in the accounting program. And this is all free for you to click on and print out. So take a look at that if you need more help with accounting, and maybe it's the weekend or the evening hours we're not available. It's a great document that's there free for you to print out. Let's go ahead now and get back to our setup chart of accounts wizard. Again, if you're new to accounting, you just loaded Church Windows, you open the accounting program, you have no data you converted from the older program, or if you're a current Church Windows user and you converted your data and you open a new year and choose to open with a blank chart of accounts, you will see the setup wizard. First thing you need to do here is enter the month and year that will start your accounting year. For most, that's January through December. Some churches opt for a fiscal rather than calendar year. If that's the case, then you just select the month that you want your calendar to begin on, or your year, your accounting year. And the year is automatically defaulting to what it reads off our computer clock. And we can see the date in the lower right. So it's reading 2014 off of that. We're going to stick with January. So once you choose your year, your month, and your year, down at the bottom we click Set Accounting Year. Also notice over to the right we have a tab that's a help screen that refers to whatever you're showing on the left. So if you're puzzled about something in the wizard, make sure you take a look at this help tab and see if that helps out any. I'm going to switch that tab. If we look along the bottom, we have two tabs. I'm going to switch it to Chart of Accounts. So as we start creating our accounts, this now empty area is going to fill and show each account in a tree view as I'm adding them. All right, I'm going to go ahead at the bottom now and click Set Accounting Year. Tells me it's going to create an empty accounting year starting 1/1/2014 and ending 12/31/2014. Is this correct? So yes, for me it is, so I'll say yes. If you read that and it's not correct, you can say no and go back and change what you need. We'll say yes, it is correct. And then the program asks me, will you be using account numbers for your accounts? In accounting, you have the choice of creating just accounts, names only, or you can create accounts with account numbers. I highly suggest you use account numbers, or if you opt to not use account numbers, be very descriptive with your account names. If it's an asset account, call it Huntington Bank Checking Asset. If it's a liability account, name it with the word liability. Same for income. General Tithes and Offering income account, office expenses. That way, when you're posting transactions, you'll be really clear on what account you're using. So I'm going to go ahead and we're going to use account numbers. We'll say yes. Now I have a screen where I can choose the structure of my account numbers. I'm going to leave it as is, but here a number sign indicates where I want a number, and then the period or decimal indicates where I would want a period or decimal. Pretty simple and straightforward. So at the bottom we'll click Use This Structure. And now it takes me right to setting up my main funds. Now for each of these type of accounts, I'm just going to make one or two. The way you make them is the same in the wizard. Before you start making all your accounts, though, you might want to, on a piece of paper, write out your chart of accounts. Then you can even call into support or email support and ask us to just take a look at it and advise you as to whether or not you think anything's missing, or just give you little advice on what you might need. Once we start in the wizard, you notice there's no back button. If I go through and add funds and move on to the next type of account, I can't go back and add more funds in the wizard. Now once I'm done with the wizard, I can add more funds, any type of accounts. It's just that in the wizard there is no back button. So we'll go ahead and I'm going to set up my first fund. Upper left, I'm going to put in the fund name. I'm just going to call it my General Operating Fund. And then I'm just going to hit Tab on my keyboard, and that pops me right down to the fund balance account name, where it fills in that field by just taking my fund name and then adding the word balance at the end of that. So I'm just going to hit Tab. Let me get a sip of coffee real quick. Notice for account number, the first number is already filled in. For your accounts in the accounting program, assets are always going to start with a number 1. Liabilities will always start with a 2. Funds will always start with a 3. Income will start with a 4. And expense will start with a 5. So when you go to create a certain type of account, the program knows that type of account is going to start with a particular number, and it fills that in for you. So I'm going to go ahead and fill in the rest of the account number. I'll do 100, 100. We do have the option to create sub-funds. That's a little more advanced topic, so today we're not going to go into sub-funds. If you have questions about sub-funds, definitely give us a call or email. Today we're just going to do pretty basic chart of accounts, so I'm going to click on Add this fund along the bottom. And the program now asks me, will there be income accounts for general operating fund? Behind that, over on the right, we can already see in my chart of accounts tree view, my first fund, my general operating fund. I'm going to go ahead and say yes, I am going to make some income accounts. And now the screen has changed to upper left, tell me main income accounts for, and the current fund I'm making it for is my general operating fund. I can't change that right now because I answered the question just prior to this saying yes, I wanted to make income accounts for the general operating fund. So my cursor is flashing in account name, and I'll just go ahead and put in my first income account, general tithes and offerings. Tab down to account number, and notice because it's an income account, it automatically is beginning with a 4. So I'll put in 4, 100, 100. And then click Add Account. I can go ahead and add more. It's again always going to start with a 4. Put in my next account name and number and click Add Account. And I can just keep adding all the accounts I need that would be linked to my general operating fund. And once I'm done, down at the bottom, I just click Finished with Income Accounts for General Operating Fund. Program now asks, will there be expense accounts for the General Operating Fund? And I do want to make some, so I'll say yes. And screen looks very similar, except for it tells me at the upper left I'm now making main expense accounts for my General Operating Fund. So I'll go ahead and put in office expenses. Tab down to account number, and then click Add Accounts. We'll do I'm kind of making generic accounts. Your accounts can be very generic, or you might want to be more specific and have payroll or office expense accounts specific for every expense you have. That's entirely up to you. Type in the name and number and click, I'm going to go ahead and click, Add Account. Notice on the right, my tree view is growing. I see my general operating fund now has 2 income accounts and 2 expense accounts linked to it. I can keep adding more expense accounts, works the same way. I'm going to go down now though and click Finished with Expense Accounts for General Operating Fund. Program now asks, would you like to set up another fund? Chances are you probably are going to have more than just a general operating fund. Maybe you have building fund, memorial fund, missions. If you want to keep adding funds, you'd say yes, and you would repeat the same process we just did, adding a fund, then any income, then any expense accounts that would be linked to that fund. We're going to go ahead and say no, so we will have more time to show you a lot more of the program. This takes us to the accounts receivable client number. Now, accounts receivable, that is an add-on module. I believe it's $150. I have to double check. I don't deal with the prices, so that's why I say I believe. The ladies up front know those for sure. But that does not come with the program. Not every church. Oh, I'm sorry. Marla just answered on the side in the chat. It is $99. That does not automatically come with church windows because not all churches have the need for accounts receivable. It's more likely you need it if you are doing a lot of billing through the church, where maybe you have a church school and you take up tuition, things like that. But we do have it activated here just to show you how you would add that if you needed to. First, you would need an accounts receivable client number, and that's an asset. So I'm just going to put that as all zeros and say set account number. And now we see in our tree view, we also have an accounts receivable client under our asset. I can add more if I'd like. I'm just going to continue without adding the client accounts. And now that brings us to our regular asset accounts. If you have more questions about accounts receivable, definitely give us a call or email. The ladies up front, again, they could answer more questions about purchasing that if you'd like to purchase that. Let's look at just our regular asset accounts like your checking and your savings. Now it says create asset accounts, so I'm just going to type in the name, and we really recommend for your asset accounts, name them after the actual bank where you have that checking account or savings account. Don't call it a fund. The reason being, to us as technicians, when you call us on the phone and you're referring to a fund, we're thinking you mean the number 3 accounts, the actual funds. When you name your assets, you know, Huntington Bank Fund, or oftentimes we'll even see General Operating Fund for an asset name, and the terminology can cause confusion on the phone with technicians. Plus, your assets are not the same thing as a fund, a number 3 account. The assets are those things you own, like your checking and savings. And again, just try to name those after the actual institution or bank where you have that money. So we'll call this Huntington Bank Checking. I'll tab down and enter an account number for that checking account. And then I'm going to click Add Account. Go ahead and add more if I'd like. I'll put in a savings, third savings, and click Add Account. And I can keep adding all the asset accounts I need. And when I'm done, just go down to the bottom and click Finish with Asset Accounts. Now the program moves on to my liability accounts. And a very important one of those is my accounts payable vendor list. Now accounts payable is a little bit unique. We'll set up the accounts payable ledger or parent account and click Set Account Number. And we now see in our tree view, to open it all up so you can see everything we've made so far, we have an account called Accounts Payable Vendors. Under this, we see Account Payable Vendor account name, and I can go ahead and add an account. And these would be the actual people you pay every month or weekly or quarterly. Go ahead and click Add Account. And we see, rather than this being an account on its own outside of in the liability accounts, this is actually a sub-account of this parent called Accounts Payable Vendors. And your vendors within your accounts payable list, if you use account numbers, they do not get assigned an account number. They're the only account within the program, well, unless you buy accounts receivable, but they are a little unique because you do not assign account numbers to those. I'll go ahead and add another. We'll do Nicor Gas. Click Add Account. And how about ComEd for electric? So we just can add all the different vendors we're going to be paying and entering bills for. And once we're done with those, down along the bottom, we click Finish with Accounts Payable Vendors. Now it asks if I'd like to set up liability accounts, and that would be my regular liabilities that have an account number. Things like loans, your taxes, maybe you have your pass-through money going into your liabilities. I just go ahead and type in the name. I'm just going to make one. So we'll do our 941 taxes, move down to account number, assign it an account number, and click Add Account. And we see it's within our liability accounts, but it doesn't have a plus sign by it because it's just a standalone account under liabilities. Our accounts payable is a parent that has all of the vendors as sub-accounts under it. So you can keep adding more liability accounts, and when you're done, you click Finish with Liability Accounts. It tells me now I can enter accounts at will or go to Set Beginning Balances. I can use all the buttons at the top of the screen to navigate. I'm going to go ahead and close this. Now I see even more up at the top of the screen. To enter my beginning balances, I can go to Manage Accounts and Beginning Balances. And you can keep this open without finalizing it until you have to open a new year. When you go to open a new year, if you haven't finalized beginning balances, the program will tell you you must finalize the prior year's beginning balances before we'll let you open this new year. But essentially, you're going to put in your total asset money as a debit amount, and then in your credit columns, the money that's in the assets is spread over your liabilities and funds, mostly in your funds, but you want the two columns to match to be in balance. Now, if you close this screen, close out of accounting, you still can get that back. If I open up accounting and I haven't finalized beginning balances, then the first thing that's going to pop up is that beginning balance window. I can just go ahead and close that and work on things if I need to. Or if I am in the program and I need to access that beginning balance screen, again, upper left, I just go to Manage Accounts and Beginning Balances. Now, say you went through the wizard and realized halfway through you forgot to add something at the beginning and there's no back button, and you still need to add some accounts. Or maybe nothing happened in the wizard, you're halfway through the year and you need to add a new account. You can add accounts in a couple different places. If we go to Manage Accounts upper left and then View, in the upper right I click on the tree view. I can right click, I'm right clicking on Assets, and there I can choose Add a New Asset, put in my account name or number, or I could do the same on Liabilities or Funds. If I wanted to add another income or expense account for a fund, I could open up the tree view and then right click on Income Accounts, and here I have Add a New Income Account to General Operating Fund, or add an expense account. And I also could edit any of the accounts I see here by right clicking on the actual account. Well, not the accounts receivable. Let me try this one. My Huntington Bank checking. If I right click, I see all the different options. I can add an asset. Here I could add a sub account, but we're not going to go into that today. I could delete it or I could edit it. Now I said there's more than one place to do this. I can also add accounts by going up to Manage Accounts and Accounts Plus Minus. Notice, let me try that again, just if I did that too quick, I hit Manage Accounts in the upper left, and then directly below that, Accounts Plus Minus, and that changed all my buttons to show all the types of accounts. If I click Asset, brings up a window where I can enter my new asset account name and number. AR clients, that's a little different. Here I could put in my different clients. Again, that is an add-on, so that's a little extra for today. If I wanted to add a liability account, not a vendor, but a regular liability account that has a number, I click on Liability. And as we did in the wizard, I just add the name and number and click Add Account. If I need to add a new vendor, I click Accounts Payable Vendor, and I can just put in that vendor name. Same for funds. Only different thing here is where that fund balance account name, I just tabbed that and it fills that in for me. One thing that's a little different, however, is adding income or expense. If I click on, let me go ahead, let me add a new fund. We'll add the building fund. So click Add Account. Now, let's say I want to add some income for my building fund. When I click on income, it says main income accounts for current fund. Now I'm seeing building fund because I think alphabetically that's why I'm seeing it, because it's the ABC, it's the first letter in all my different funds. But the first thing I need to do when making an income or an expense account going this route is I need to choose the fund it would be linked to. If I'm trying to make something that I want linked to my building fund, then I wouldn't choose general operating. I want to make sure I choose building fund. And I can go ahead and type in the name of that account. And, oops, I'm just trying to keep my numbers kind of similar. So we'll do 100, whoops, come back here. 100, 200. I Click Add Account. Now we see our building fund has an income account linked to it. I could, over in the tree view right now, I could right-click on any of these and add things as well. So whenever you see that tree view, you can usually right-click on an account to make, edit, or change things. And then if I wanted an expense account, I could go and choose my current fund of building fund, and make building fund expense. Now you might want to be a little more detailed with those. It's up to you. I'm just, like I said, I'm making pretty generic general accounts today because we are just talking about the basic setup. So I click Add Account. Now we see in our tree view we have 2 funds, and each of those funds have some income and expense accounts linked to them. So that is the basic setup for your chart of accounts and creating accounts after you've finished with the wizard. Got about half an hour left, so let's look at some of the basic transactions in Church Windows. Once you've set up your chart of accounts, go ahead and start entering transactions. To do that, there's a couple ways you can do that. I always go the hard route. In the middle of our screen, you'll see all of these items are shortcuts. We have Enter Income, Enter Bills, and Pay Bills. Those are what I consider the 3 most basic transactions in accounting. But notice in the upper left, if I get my clicking tool back, if I click on Transactions in the upper left, I can also access Enter Income, Enter Bills, Pay Bills. If we have time, we might look at transfers, and then over under the other button, we have a few more advanced transactions: spoiled check numbers, adjust asset, payroll journal entry, and a regular journal entry. If we have time, I might take a look at journal entry. But let's go ahead and look at the 3, what I consider the 3 most basic transactions. Entering income, we'll look at that first. Let me get a sip of coffee real quick. Now, if you're using our donations module, then things you enter in donations you can transfer into accounting with just a few clicks. The programs integrate really nicely. Enter income in accounting would be used for non-contributory income. Money maybe from a cookbook sale, or money you take up for rental deposits, things like that. Anything that is not a donation or contribution from one of your members or visitors to the church. To enter income, first, the date occurred is always going to default to the date it reads off your computer. So if that's not ever showing the current date, then you want to look in the lower right and see what date your computer is set to. And if it's not set to the current date, you'd want to adjust that. I could change that date if I need to, but we'll leave it at today's date. Payment method, click in here and you can choose your payment method of check, cash, EFT, debit card, or credit card. We'll go with cash. If you like, you can enter a check or reference number. That's optional. We can choose for this to print on a deposit slip, or if we prefer not, we can uncheck print on deposit slip, and then that would not show. We'll leave it checked. And then we can click the down arrow under asset account and choose the asset account we need, or we can click in the asset account field and start typing the name, or we can start typing the number of the account we need. And whatever we type in that box, it's going to narrow down to what we're typing. So in that list, if I see that account, I can click on it. I can now also enter comments if I'd like. And then I need to go down under Income, Expense, Liability Accounts, and I'll just click there. And now I see a little down arrow. I can click that down arrow, Now, chances are you will probably have a larger number of accounts to choose from, but we're just looking at the basic ones I made today. Maybe the account I need is not there. We'll go ahead and put this towards general tithes and offerings. Chances are, if you're taking deposits for room rentals, you might have an account for that. And if it's a deposit, something they're going to get back, I probably would put that towards a liability account since I'm just holding on to it. We'll go ahead and put it towards general tithes and offerings. And we'll enter the amount. And then if we'd like comments to show along the line with this income account, I can enter them right along the same line. What I've entered here, just along the line with the asset, would be specific to the entire transaction. If I want line item comments specific just for that income account, I can enter them there as well. Maybe they said they didn't want their deposit back. Oops. There we go. One H too many. There we go. Now, if I'd like, I can make this a multi-line income entry. All I did was click the plus at the end of the line. And now I can go and find the other income account I want to post money towards, enter that dollar amount and any comments if I'd like. And then once I'm done, just click Done, Add to Batch. Now if I had more income I needed to enter for this date, maybe I had money to add to savings, I can go ahead and choose my savings account, choose the income account I need, excuse me, enter the dollar amount and again any comments, and then click Done, Add to Batch. If I find I have a problem with something, or if I want to see the details, click the plus just to the left of the first line, and now it shows me the details of that transaction. If I need to edit it, I can just highlight what I need to edit and click Edit in the lower left, and it pops that back up in the upper half of the screen. So I can change that. Maybe somebody gave us income to offset an expense. So I'm putting $50 in towards an expense account and it will bring that down. I can click Done, Add to Batch to put it back in my unposted income batch. Now maybe I need to go to lunch but I'm not done adding income. Along the bottom I can click Save Batch. Now if I exit this screen, when I come back into Enter Income, notice in my unposted income batch I see 2 items. I can go ahead and keep working on that and add when I need to. Before I post it, I could click Print. And then a screen comes up where I can choose what columns and font I'd like for this printout. Now when I click Print, it brings up a report showing exactly what is in my batch right now. Now if I'm ready, go ahead and close this. Oh, one thing. Right along the top, it's important if you print this before you actually post. It's nice, this report does tell me pre-posting. So if I were to look at this report and a month or 2 down the line, I can't find this transaction in Church Windows. This is a pre-posting report, so doesn't mean it was ever posted. Once I hit Post in the lower right, tells me transactions 1 through 2 were posted, totaling $250. And if I'd like to print, I can print it now. And it's going to be the same report, however, at the top tells me income posted. So this report would indicate that this transaction was posted and is in my Church Windows accounting module now. All right, let's move on and look at how we enter bills and pay our bills. We can access that by clicking Transactions, Enter Bills, or we can use one of the shortcuts. We can click on Enter Bills in our picture map, shortcut map, and that brings up the same screen. Now when you are paying a vendor, you do need to enter a bill, and then you need to go and pay the bill. They're two separate functions. They both will involve the vendor that you're paying, but you'll see in our Enter Bill screen, we're going to use an expense or income account along with our vendor, whereas you'll see when we go to pay the bill, we'll still have the vendor, but we'll then choose our asset that we're paying that out of. So here, like in Enter Income, all of our transaction screens will default to today, or your computer date fills that in for date occurred. Maybe I'm working ahead and I'm going to send these out and I want the date on my reports and the date I see all my balances affected in accounting to be this coming Friday. So I can go ahead and choose my date occurred in the future or in the past. I can enter an invoice number, that's optional. Due date is also optional. If I put in a due date, then on our accounts payable report we can ask to see bills that are due by a certain day, but again, that is optional. Next, I need to choose my vendor. All of the account fields, whenever you're choosing a vendor or down under expense income, they work the same way. You can click the down arrow and select the vendor from the list, or I can start typing in the name of the vendor I need and it will narrow down to what I've typed. I can enter comments here. And the comments directly across from my vendor payee are transaction comments. Those will show in the column called transaction comments, and they will apply to the vendor and the expense or income account. Now, if I go down under expense income accounts and I choose my first expense account, we'll call it an office expense, can put in the amount for the bill, and then enter any comments. The comments I enter along this line are specific to this expense account, and these are called line item comments. Also, any comments I enter on this screen and my Enter Bill screen, these do not show on your checks. We have a little asterisk here by the comments that brings you down in the lower left that tells us use the INS column in Pay Bills to insert comments on check stubs. We'll look at that in just a moment. Because none of the comments entered in the bill screen show on your checks. It's the comments you add in pay bills where you actually choose the asset account that the check is written out of. The comments in pay bills will print on your checks. All right, so I can, if I need, I can click plus and add more lines if I was splitting this between multiple accounts. We're just going to click Done, Add to Batch. And I could do one of two things now. Well, I could edit it or remove it, print it or save it, just like in Enter Income. I'm not going to show those again for time's sake here, so we have a little time for questions at the end. I could post this, and if I post it, then that means I'm going to come back and pay it later. Or for now, let's look at post and pay these bills. And then after I do that, I'll come back and show you the difference. We can just post one. So if I do post and pay these bills, tells me transaction 3 was posted totaling $54.35, print. If I'd like a printout, I can print it now. I could have printed one before posting and paying. If I say yes, just like in Enter Income, I can choose my columns and font and click print. And the report's going to show me exactly what I had just posted in Enter Bills. And then once I'm done with that, and I wait just a moment, looks very similar to the screen that just popped up, but notice I'm now in my pay bill screen, and I can see the bill I just entered for Ameritech on the screen. Now I can go ahead and fill in, if I'd like to, my default asset account. If I typically pay out of the same asset account and I typically use the same payment method, I can fill in those defaults, but I can, if maybe this time I've decided I'm not going to do a computer prepared check, I'd rather do cash, or it was an EFT, I can, along the line of the actual payment, click under Pay Method and change that method. Now if I choose Manual Check, notice I hit Post and the program, there's a little red X under Check or Reference Number. If I hover on that, it tells me a check number is required because Manual Check is selected. So for a manual check, I do have to enter a check number. With computer check, I would enter that when I go print my check. And then the other 4 payment methods require no check number at all. So I'll go ahead and put in a check number here. Now notice I have no comments showing along the line where I'm actually choosing my asset account and entering that payment method. The comments I do see below are actually for the bill. If I'd like to copy over my comments that I entered in the bill, then I can click on, let me highlight this or spotlight it, this little INS button at the right end of the line. When I click that, it brings up a window showing any comments it finds from the Pay Bill screen. If I'd like to add some of these, I can, both of them are the same. If they were different, I could click Append to Payment on both. And notice it adds them twice. I only want them once because it's the same comment, so I'll remove one of those. And then I need to click OK. And now we see it added that comment for me. I didn't have to type that in all over again. I mean, obviously, with just one thing showing on the screen, it wasn't that big a time saver. But if you've entered 10, 15 bills, and when you entered that bill, you wanted all the comments to apply, clicking the INS button and then appending and OK is probably going to save you time over having to type the entire comment on the line again. Now the asterisk here by comments, if we look in the lower left, it tells us comments will appear in the check stubs and use INS to insert comments from bills, which I just did that, so got a little ahead of myself there. All right, if we're ready, we can go ahead and post this. If we want to print now, we could print it right now, or we could save this to come back to it later if we needed to. I'm going to go ahead and post it. And every time after you post, it does ask you if you want to print. So I mean, you can print before and after. Really probably not necessary. Personally, I think the report that is important to actually print out if you're going to keep paper copies is the one after you've hit post, because it will say on there it's posted. Clicking print before you post, it's nice for an on-screen visual. I mean, you could print it out, but personally, I might just do that to take a look at everything on screen, make sure everything's okay before I hit post. And then once I post it, I would go ahead and print that report. Just like in Income and Enter Bills, we can choose our columns and the font and hit print. And now we have a printout that's specifically showing us our payment transaction. So we've entered the bill, we've paid the bill. I think I just hit post. I didn't hit post and print checks because I think I did a manual check. I'll show you really quickly. Close this. Let me show you how if we go to enter bills. I'm just going to quickly enter a bill for ComEd. We'll call it office expenses. I'm not going to add any comments just because I'm looking like I'm running short on time. So we'll do an amount. We'll add it to the batch. And I'm not ready to post and pay these today, so I'm just going to hit post. And I can go ahead and print that if I'd like. I'm going to say no. So I've posted that bill. Maybe I've closed out of accounting and I've gone home for the day. Come back in. Maybe I only come in every other day or once a week. I come in my next shift. And I open accounting once the program opens. Now, I want to go and pay. Maybe I entered a whole bunch of bills. I only entered one. That's all you watched me enter, but let's pretend I entered a whole bunch of bills. I want to go find all those and pay them. I can go to Transactions, Pay Bills, and I rarely recommend or on the phone tell anybody to use the Select Vendor Payee to Pay, especially if they're trying to find bills they've already entered. It's better and easier to make sure you're connecting your bill and payment and that they're staying connected and that the bill doesn't end up showing as outstanding even though you put a payment in. It's best and easiest to click on Quick Pay, and I could click on Pay Bills Entered Today if I wanted because I just entered that today, but let me remove that. If you didn't enter today, it's a week later, you can go to Quick Pay and View Outstanding Bills. This screen will show any bills that it thinks is outstanding. Here we see the one bill I entered for ComEd If I'd like to pay that, I can put a check here and click on Create Payment. But before I do that, let me remove that. I want to talk about one more thing that sometimes causes confusion. Let me real quick, I'm going to put in a beginning balance for one of these liability accounts just so it'll make more sense what I'm going to show you here. Now, I'm obviously going to be out of balance because I'm not putting in equal balances for everything. Maybe we have $612 in taxes we owe. So I'm going to close this now. Oh, yes, let's save changes. I didn't hit save. All right. So now if I go to Transactions, Pay Bills, and I could do it through the shortcut map too. If I click on Quick Pay and View Outstanding Bills, we still only see there's one bill for ComEd for $67. If I go to Quick Pay and View Vendors with a Balance, that's frequently confused with bills that are outstanding. Now, if I click on that, we're going to see two accounts there. We'll see my ComEd bill that I entered because, indeed, yes, there is money in that ComEd account. When I enter a bill, my vendor account is increased or credited, and then my expense account is debited, and that increases my expenses. But because I've entered that bill and not paid it yet, there's $67 sitting in that vendor account, so it does have a balance. However, my taxes account, you just saw me put in a beginning balance for that, it has a balance also, but it's not from an outstanding bill. So vendors with a balance is specifically that. It's your, I think I should say liabilities with a balance, because it's any of your liability accounts, be it one with a number or one of your accounts payable vendors. It's any of those accounts within your liabilities that have a current balance. Might be from a bill, or in the case of this 941 taxes that you just saw me put a beginning balance in for, this has a balance because of that beginning balance I entered. If you're not sure why an account has a balance, now I'm getting a little off, but I think it's important for understanding that View Vendors with a Balance and why it has a balance. If you look in there and an account has a balance and you don't know why it has that balance, if it was from a bill or from another transaction, moving money, I advise going to your general ledger. And here we see, well, let's just print the whole thing right now. Normally you do single account, but we have such a small chart of accounts and very few transactions, it probably won't be much more than 1 or 2 pages. So click print. Here, if we look under our accounts payable vendors, let me make it a little bigger, we can see Ameritech, nothing ComEd, there is my bill. I entered a bill, I have not paid that bill, and that is why I have $67 in that account. If I look at my 941 taxes just under that, the bold means the beginning balance, the bold at the end means the end balance, and we see there are no transactions in there. So thus far, we have absolutely no transactions to that account, and that is our beginning balance. But we can see the actual ComEd account has that balance due to a bill. So let's go back and let's pay that now. So we've come back a week later, we're ready to pay our bills. Let me click on Pay Bills in the picture map to show you it goes to the same place. If I want to pay a bill, best to go to Quick Pay, View Outstanding Bills, and here I'll see any bills that are outstanding or not connected to a payment. I can put a check here to select it, or if I had numerous bills and wanted all of them, I could click Select All. And then I'm just going to click on Create Payments. Takes me back to my pay bill screen where, as before, now I did not set my default asset account. I'll show you where we can do that before we're done here. I can choose my checking. This time we'll do a computer check. I'm not going to put any comments in. I'm just going to go ahead and click Post and Print Checks. I could print out what I just did in Pay Bills if needed. I'm going to say no. And that brings me to my Print Check screen, where I can choose my design. We have so many designs in here right now because we've just collected all these different designs. Program comes with Check Stub Stub or Stub Check Stub. And you can go into Check Designer and alter those if you need to. I'm going to leave it as is and put in my starting check number, hit Tab. Now if I click Print, I should get a preview of my check. And I can go ahead and put that in the printer, and upper left, click my print icon and print my check. So those are the basics of setting up accounts and transactions. I did want to show you where to set that default asset and payment method. At the top middle, I can click Special Functions and Settings. And then here I can choose my default asset account, default pay method for payments. Maybe I typically do computer check. If I'm using AR and I'd like to set a default, I can. Now these are all optional. You don't have to set a default. But if you typically write things out of the same asset account, typically use the same payment method, saves you time to fill those in. And then if I do go to pay something, it automatically fills those in for me on the pay bill screen. But I can change them if I need to right there on the pay bill screen. So now if I were to go to Transactions and Pay Bills, notice my default asset and pay method are filled in permanently now until I go back into settings and change those if needed. Let me show you really quickly. I think transfers are pretty easy transaction to understand. Transfers are when you need to move money between like accounts, like asset to asset, liability to liability, and so on. Here we choose our date occurred. We choose the from account, which would be the account the money is in. And then the to account would be the account we are moving the money to. Now notice once I choose an asset account for my from account, then the to account's only going to show me asset accounts because it has to be a like account. And I can put an amount in. And with asset accounts, if I'm doing a transfer between assets, that is the one type account where the pay method opens up, and I could actually create a computer check or choose a payment method. So if we were to say computer, we could enter comments and such, add that to the batch, and post it. And then we just transferred money from our savings to our checking. Now that's just within the program. You still have to go do that at the bank. I had somebody within the last month who mistakenly thought our program worked with her bank and did the transfers for her. No, Church Windows does not do any of your banking. You still have to actually go do your transfers or transactions at the bank. All right, I just noticed a question come in that's a common question. How do you get rid of an outstanding bill that accidentally got in there, shouldn't be there, and isn't a bill? Well, it is a bill. I think you just mean that, it shouldn't be there. It's not a legitimate bill. I really would advise going to first reports, and if it's one of your vendors, then worksheets and accounts payable. Choose your accounts payable journal and click print and see if your vendor ends at 0, meaning you've actually entered a bill and paid a bill. Take a look at this and see if you have an extra bill outstanding. Sometimes bills will get entered. Just real quickly enter one. I'm just randomly choosing an account here. So I entered something for Nicor Gas. Sometimes when paying it, I don't like the select vendor payee because sometimes people add that to the batch and then they'll go ahead and notice right here, this pay now checkbox is not checked. And I think some users are using select vendor payee and then just entering that amount to pay and posting it. Problem is, when I did that, if I look at Quick Pay Now and outstanding bills, I have a bill still outstanding for Nicor Gas because that Pay Now checkbox was not checked. Notice my account balance has gone back down to 0 because I did enter it and I did pay it, but it shows an amount due, and that's because my little Pay Now checkbox was not checked. If you look at the report and it legitimately is an extra bill that you need to reverse, you can go to Transactions, Browse in the upper left, come in here and find it, highlight it, and click reverse. And you can choose the date you want to reverse it as, and then just click OK. And now, if I were to lower left, click Include Reversals, we can see the original bill and then the reversal of that bill. So you're always going to have, when you reverse something, you'll always have at least 4 lines showing in red, 2 for the original, 2 for the reversal, more if it was a multi-line item. But for that one that I just entered, the bill for NICOR, I thought it was NICOR, wasn't it? Where'd it go? Here we go. We have a bill that was showing as outstanding for NICOR. To clear that up or mark it paid, because we see here, we looked at our report as well. Here we see a bill and a payment. We saw the account balance was 0. So I've entered everything correctly. The bill and payment just are not connected. So I can highlight the bill, click Correct. Upper right of the correct window, click Mark as Paid. Now I'll see all the payments I've made to that vendor throughout the year. So if I have more than just one, I'd want to match up my dates and amounts and highlight the payment that paid the bill. Click OK. And then click Save Correction. Now, if I close out of here, oops, say OK. Close out of here and I go back into Pay Bills. I look at Quick Pay, View Outstanding Bills. Nothing is outstanding because I connected that NICOR payment and bill to one another. All right. Somebody asked about a journal entry. Okay, a journal entry, you go to Transactions Other. It's a little more advanced. We were just going over basics, but journal entry. We choose our date occurred, enter any comments we like. And then we choose our first account and enter a debit or credit, whichever is going to be. And then to enter the credit amount, we need to click the plus at the end of the line, which drops that debit line down. Now we can choose our second account and enter the credit for that, or debit, whichever. You have to have equal debits and credits. And then we'd add it to the batch, and we could post it. So with a journal entry, you do need to know what accounts you need to debit and credit. Okay, sure, giving accounts and how they're linked. We can go up to Special Functions, Link Donations. And here you simply choose the debit account is always going to be an asset. And then the credit, I can click there and choose a liability, an income, or an expense account. I just click on the account. And now my giving account general fund is linked to my Huntington Bank checking asset account and my general tithes and offering credit account. And go down the line and link what I need for each of those different giving accounts. All right. Well, I think I'm going to go ahead and end this user group webinar. But if you have questions beyond the basic setup and basic transactions, definitely give us a call at 1-800-533-5227, or you can email questions to support@churchwindows.com. And be sure, if somebody else signed you up for this and you don't know how to access the user groups, take a look on our website under Training. We show the user group webinars. And I believe there is one tomorrow that looks at the donation reports. Again, these are all free. And then we also have some little quick 20-minute sessions, what we're calling coffee break quick classes. So take a look at some of the upcoming topics and sign up now. Hope to see you in the next user group. I'm going to go ahead and end this user group for today. Thanks again for attending. And everybody have a great day. Bye.